Hey y'all, welcome to the Filling Station. It has been an interesting day in the market, so I wanted to come back and do a recap of Tesla today. But let me first give my disclaimer. I am not a financial advisor. I just enjoy teaching people how to build generational wealth. And yes, the stock market is just one of those avenues. So this video is for educational purposes only. If you could please y'all like, share, comment, subscribe, all of that, because we learn and we grow together. With that being said, let's get started. So we are looking at Tesla on the 30-minute chart, and I like to look at that because it kind of tells a story that I can understand. Let me say it that way, right? So pre-market, I noticed yesterday that Tesla hit a high of after hours 291.90, which was interesting, right? Well, actually, that was at 4. Yeah, yesterday at 4 o'clock. That is 4 o'clock candle. Tesla made a high of 291.19. Normally, when it makes a high, it normally sets some type of rejection like that, considering we were just down in the 230, 240, 250 area, and now we're back at the 290, right? So just something that I like to watch. But we made a high of 291.19. So I noticed that, it looks like we were declining or going down just a little bit. So I think I went to my 1-hour chart and drew this channel here. So this was the areas that Tesla had been trading in pre-market, and I needed to watch that area because when the bell rang or rung, I wanted to make sure that I was not still trading in this type of up down, like meaning this was I would have used this top line as my resistance, this bottom line as my support, and it would have been around the 283, around the 283 for support, resistance at around the 289. So I could have traded that as a scalping move, but I needed to be careful because I just, for some reason, when it hit this 291.19, it's like, oh, something's a little bit different. So I drew the channel here, as you can see, the top line, the bottom line. I used that as a support and a resistance. So I would mark my level above this level. Once we break above this, I could enter to the upside. If we break under this, then I can, move back to the downside. Well, we didn't go back to the upside, which is interesting, right? So looking at it on this 30-minute chart, we broke out 9:30. We broke out of that line. So if I extend this line here, we would have broken out of that line here at this candle and on this 30-minute chart. My 5 and 50 cross, y'all know I like to see that. That's a signal for me. But I had a target. I said if Tesla break around, I think this area here, which is around the 280, I think at the time it was around the 280 area, we could very well come back to the 266.51. However, my daily chart, I had already marked that, there was a level of 268.98, which is the 200 EMA on the daily chart. So I knew that I didn't have any moving averages at the, that could have held me up at that place or stopped me at that place. Or I don't think, let me say that. But I knew that that was a level I needed to remember, the 266.51. I also needed to, which is my 200 EMA on this 30-minute chart. I also needed to remember this 268.98. That's why it's so important that we go back to the daily chart and look and see how it finished on the day, because it told us a story on yesterday, and I'm going to get to that, right? So once we broke out of this area here, and under the areas that I had marked are those little lines that we see, y'all, those gray shaded areas, those are just support and resistance that I needed to watch. What I like the decline that Tesla had. What is interesting is coming off of the 291 down to the 266. But I say so often, Tesla always normally exceeds its ATR, which is the average true range for the stock. So going back to, again, we came down. So if you got into this trade, this was a really, really nice trade. What was interesting is how we came down to a level, kind of knew we could possibly find support, and we stayed there at a range for a minute. And this candle here kind of threw people off. It normally runs up in the day, towards the last 15 minutes. It's probably going to have a strong move to the upside or a strong move to the downside. So, and this is the candle that proved that, we bounced off of this 200 EMA only to go back to the upside. What will be interesting for Tesla, and I'm going to go to the daily chart to show that what would be interesting for Tesla, this is my daily chart, and y'all, I know it is so congested, but guess what? It works for me. Let me say that. So this was our hanging man candle from yesterday. As you can see, it was from 325. Today is 326. This is our candle for today. We came down, broke through this 200 EMA. At the time was at the 268.98. We broke through that down to this 5 EMA at the 567.30. Again, that's why it's so important that we go back and look at these at a different, on the daily chart, the weekly chart, the monthly chart, the different time frames, so that we can get a different understanding or a clearer understanding of what's going on, right? So we came down, bounced off of this 5 EMA, only to go back to the upside slightly, right? So for tomorrow, I don't like to predict the market. Let me say that, y'all. But what I'd like to see for Tesla, and keep in mind when you're trading options, you can trade it in either direction. Is this going to take us back to the downside, knowing that we still have to support at this 268.98 or let's say 268.98 is a support area for us. If we open under that 268.98, that's a problem. Now, and we closed at 272.06, right? So if by chance we break under that 20 EMA and under this 5 EMA, which is here, the blue line here, which is right here, not far from a support area that I had marked at 566.54, 567.30 is what I would look for if we should open under that. We have opened under 2 levels, and I would say key levels of support on this daily chart. So that would be interesting. So if you're trading Tesla tomorrow, I will be looking to see where we open, considering, we've had a nice decline, especially coming off of that 291 area. It gave us a hanging man candle on this daily chart, only to do exactly what I thought it would do. It did the exact same thing and came to levels that I had marked, and that's why I say so often, y'all, that it is so important that we go and we mark those gathering spots, those places of Tesla gathered in this area. Again, what would be interesting, and I may have to try to bring it down just a little bit, what would be interesting for Tesla is if by chance we break under this 267.30, breaking under that 267.30. Tesla was an inside week candle for this week, and I have the 249.52, and could we do that? We very well can. Tesla has been moving on average $19.04 per day, let's say that, right? So if we break under this 5 EMA around the 267 and even come back down, to the weekly target that I had for Tesla was here at the 253.47. Let me make sure I have that 253.47. So can we come back to that? We very well can if we should break this 267.30. So I would definitely watch Tesla tomorrow, as again, if it should open under this 267.30, we could very well have trouble. I'm going to go to the 5-minute chart because I kind of like to see that. Normally if I'm not on the 30-minute, I am on my 5-minute. So this is a different view for Tesla. So if you traded it today, again, this was our gathering spot that we do, normally pre-market. We came down, bounced up. The green dotted line here is my opening range breakout, which is the ORB, meaning first 15 minutes of the day. Tesla really traded in a very small zone, which tells me that we're going to have a strong move either to the upside or to the downside. So that's something to be mindful of. Normally if your stock, whatever position that you're watching, if it's trading, SPY does it a lot. If it's trading in a very small tight area, support being, let's say here at the 280.42, resistance was at 284.49, and that is a small range for Tesla, and that's where we were for the first 15, let's say, about the first 15, 20, 30 minutes of the day. So we have to be careful in this area. Once it break that area, it normally tells you the direction that we're gonna go, let's say that, and Tesla broke at that here. Now I wouldn't have wanted to trade this little, to me it's just too jumbled and mumbled together. However, I would have liked to scalp this to the downside from this down to here. That green hammer here would have given me a signal as my MACD here separated, so I would have had confirmation to enter it to the downside. That would have been my deciding candle to get out for a scalp. Again, I like to go in small, make small profit, in my opinion, is great big gains. So small profit, big gains, let's say that. So I could have entered back to the upside as a scalp back here, out, double top here, out again. I would have watched it to the downside right here. What would have been interesting is just watching this, this up and down movement here. If you are a scalper, those are areas that you can go in and scalp the market. That means you go in at at a place, and then you get out at a place, and then you go back in again and do the exact same thing. They call it rinse and repeat. But Tesla is one of those, especially in this time, in this season, that we have to be careful in making sure that we're in on the right side of the trade. And once it goes against your why, get out. I say that so often. Live to trade another day, right? So if you're trading Tesla today, I say so often, be careful with your swing trades. Why? Because we don't know how Tesla's going to move. We just know it does what it does, right? So be very, very careful with that. What is interesting is we made a low here of 266.51. Again, it would not surprise me to see us open under that tomorrow. Not financial advice, or not saying that, I could be all the way wrong. That's why it's so important that we just trade what we see, and we'll make sure that we get up and study it. Just get up early just to look at it pre-market to see what's going on. How is Tesla moving pre-market? How is it, where's my support? Where's my resistance? And that's exactly how I knew that, this channel here, we were trading in this zone here. So normally I'm, again, mark my alerts. Let me know this is where I'm going to enter. If it goes up this, if we break above this, my upside. If it break under this, this will be my downside. And I mark my levels of where I saw I could possibly have trouble. Strong support. Looking at my daily chart, we could come to this level. So y'all, I hope that, with our learning journey, it's just practicing and making sure that we understand the language. Go back, look at your different time frames, make sure you understand. If not, write it down, go back, do some research, find some videos, whatever it is that works best for you. But trading is not difficult. It's, again, putting a puzzle together. Let's use the puzzle example. It's just like putting a puzzle together, and you're having to, learn one piece at a time. And once you got it and understand it, you move on to the next piece. And that's exactly how trading is. Try not to get overwhelmed with it. But again, I enjoy doing this. It's just, I enjoy, let me say that. So again, I hope that everyone have had a very productive day, an awesome day today, a very profitable day today. If you traded Tesla to the downside, congratulations, because today was a very nice trading day for Tesla to the downside. Now, if you could, please like, share, comment, subscribe. Y'all, we learn and we grow together. I say that so often. I hope that, again, everyone have an amazing day. And with that being said, y'all be blessed, as well as a blessing unto others.